a lot of changes are coming to Pokemon Sleep. This is probably, they may downplay it, but this is probably one of the biggest change since the start of the game, besides having events here and there. Welcome back to another video on Pokemon Sleep. It's Brovini here. Now today I'm talking about maintenance and version 1.0.15 update. If you're on the English app just like I am, it actually says nothing. But if we go and change our app to Japanese, that is a different story. Look at how much more information the Japanese players get before the English or other language players get. And there's a lot of juicy information in here. It's crazy that they didn't tell the English players or the other language players. My advice for you guys, if you want to get sort of up-to-date information, is either join one of the Pokemon Sleep Discords, either my Discord or maybe Rainanix server, and we'll try and keep you up to date as much as possible. Another way you can access this information without actually changing your game's language. Oh, now I have to change it back. And I'll leave a link to this in the description below. You can actually go to the Pokemon Sleep website at pokemonsleep.net. If you scroll down, you can actually see sort of the latest news which reflect what's in the game. So if the English version has almost no information, unfortunately, the English version of the news in the website also has almost no information. But if you then go on over to the Japanese version, so if we change our language here to Nihongo, now you can see there's a lot more information on that same update, that same news, as I showed you in the app if you change to Japanese. Then, if you're interested in translating this yourself, all you have to do is Google Translate. And if you use Google Chrome, you just simply click English, and you'll get a few things that are a bit inaccurate, which is why if you have like one of these discords to translate for you, you might get more accurate information. But you get the gist of it by and large. So, what's getting added? What are the major changes coming to Pokemon Sleep? Okay, so this translation is from the Pokemon Sleep server, and it seems to be pretty good. If you use the Google Translate version, you probably have a few things that don't make any sense. Now, let's talk about the greatest benefits to all players from this update first. At random, we are now going to get Biscuits or diamonds every day when we play the game. And from my understanding, the gifts will go into the gift box. And I think it's great. It keeps people playing every day, but also the free-to-play players, even when I was free-to-play, it felt the progression was just too slow. I mean, the point of Pokemon games, generally speaking, is to catch Pokemon. As a free-to-play, it was very hard to progress and catch new Pokemon, let alone finding the best sub-skills in that species. So I think this is a great addition to the game, the fact that you could be getting Biscuits and possibly some diamonds that you can spend on Biscuits as well. Secondly, we are now going to, after the update, get more candies from transferring Pokemon that are evolved. For example, Ivysaur will give you 7 candies and Venusaur give you 10 candies. Whereas previously, if you transferred any Pokemon, doesn't matter what evolution they're at, you only get 5. So over the next 2 days, while the update is yet to come, hold on to any evolved Pokemon if you plan to transfer them to send them to a professor until after the update. Thirdly, pretty much across the board, skill Pokemon are getting a buff. And this mainly applies to, or only applies to skill specialists. Previously, skill specialists, they weren't really in the meta. I feel like berry specialists come first, ingredients come second, and skill specialists were third, as a general rule of thumb. And maybe because of that, they are all getting a buff. If your skill specialist hasn't triggered skill for a certain number of times or amount of time, then the chance of it triggering goes up. Now, how will this factor into the Rainanix calculator? We're going to have to ask Rainanix whether that's even possible, because it's going to complicate things for the calculator even more. But the good news is, skill specialists are getting a buff. And while we're talking about this, special mention to two types of skill specialists, the ones with extra helpful S like Jolteon or Arcanine, and also the ones with Dream Shard Magnet S, because they're getting an extra buff. Their numbers for how much Dream Shard you get has increased, and how much extra help you get has increased. In fact, at level 1, main skill level 1, Dream Shard Magnet now dropped almost 3 times what it did before. At level 1, 240 Dream Shards, whereas before it was 88. And at level 6, it's not as much of an increase, it's about double, so about 568 before, and now 1200 in the Dream Shard production. Which confirms our hunch that the worst skills previously were these two, because the developers seem to be trying to balance these Pokemon out. And the fourth great benefit of this update is that the mission requirement in terms of how much rank you need to get an incense is going to be reduced. And that's great, because if you think about it, as they introduce new areas that are increasingly difficult to rank up the Snorlax tier, yet the mission requirement remains the same dependent on your rank. I just never saw how it's possible that at rank 45 they expect everyone in future islands or even in Snowdrop Tundra right now to reach Master 5, because most people don't. Even the pay-to-win players are having trouble to reach this kind of incense tier requirement. Now, they didn't specify how much they'll nerf this, or perhaps they're gonna nerf it dependent on which island or which research area you pick. So for example, making it easier at Snowdrop than it is at Greengrass to get the incense mission done. But regardless, it's good news. So, making this sub-skill Research EXP bonus less bad than before. Yes, it's still kind of bad, because I would much rather not have this skill and have it replaced with Helping Speed or Berry Finding S, but at least it's not necessarily harmful anymore if they reduce the requirements for the incense mission sufficiently. Because before this update, I was actually trying to slow down my rank progression to avoid having weeks where I couldn't complete the mission requirement for the incense mission. So those were the main updates that pretty much benefit everybody, and we're all very happy about that. Let's talk about some of the less important stuff, and also one thing that really sucks for some of you. We are going to get 100 bag limit and ingredient bag limit increase in capacity, so up to 600 now. Which is great, because for ingredient bags, when you start to unlock the 4 rare ingredients, it starts to become quite hard to maintain high levels of ingredients for every type in preparation for the next week of dishes, etc. But this one really mainly benefits the pay-to-win players because it costs diamonds to expand bag. But for the free-to-play who have been using the diamonds to expand bag anyway, this is still a benefit, because eventually you'll be able to reach the 600 limit. This part is also good for people who sometimes fail tracking. The game will no longer recognize your short nap as the one to calculate your midpoint or your sleep consistency if your actual bedtime sleep, so usually the long sleep, had a failed tracking session, which tends to give you like a catastrophic outcome, because I've seen a lot of times where if you have one day where your main sleep failed to track, you would just get a flat out F sleep consistency. And now a quality of life update is it will be easier to pick up berries and ingredients. Admittedly, it wasn't the best mechanic before, because things were often hidden behind Pokemon or rocks, and sometimes tapping, you just kind of miss the berry and doesn't pick up very well. And the best way before was to swipe your productions like this so that you make sure you don't miss anything. But what they're going to do now is to increase the detection range. What that means is if you tap slightly off the berry, now you have a better chance of picking the berry up anyway. And on to the one thing that's now going to suck for some of you, and I'm talking about the time zone trick. So previously I suggested that if you missed a meal because of maintenance or because you just forgot you didn't have time that day, what you could do is to turn back time zones in order to go back and cook the meal, which I then followed up with another video here where you can cook 4 or maybe even 5 meals in the morning of Monday by saving up all your Sunday meals for Monday, giving your Snorlax a huge boost to start the week off. Well, they finally caught on to our abuse of the mechanics, and they will be punishing players by applying what they call a temporary play restriction. What does that mean? I'm not sure, but I'll be making a video about it when I figure it out. That is what my alt accounts are for. So don't do the time zone trick anymore until I update you guys. My main question is, well, people still travel across time zones every day. So the question is, how often will the game allow us to change our time zones? If, for example, they still let us change our time zones twice a week, then potentially we can still use the trick to do one of Sunday's meals, say Sunday dinner, on Monday morning. But what I do like about this change is that it levels the playing field so that the people who were abusing the feature before are now playing at the same level as players who weren't abusing the feature. Let me know what you think about these changes. I personally think it's mostly good, mostly positive. Kind of sucks that I can't boost my week with Sunday meals anymore, maybe. But watch this space, maybe we'll find another way out. Thank you for watching, guys. Let me know in the comments section below what you think of these changes. And don't forget to like and subscribe.